I basically tortured myself for the entire pregnancy. I worked harder than I have ever worked. I was constantly on breaking point.
For my next guest, we have the founder and CEO of Scene Connects. We have the incredible Sedge Beswick. Welcome to the show. Sedge, you are an absolute powerhouse of a woman. You own Scene Connects, which is an influencer marketing company. You're a mother. You're a wife. You are everything. And obviously, you've just launched so you've got your London office, which is not far from mine.
Around the corner.
Great place to be. And you recently, well, I say recent, but like the last few years, opened your New York office.
Yep.
How on earth are you doing everything?
I'm not.
Well, straight to the point.
Yeah. I could manage it all and I could do it all. Then you throw in a kid and your priorities aggressively shift. And now I'm in this constant point of battling because I want to spend as much time with her as humanly possible. Mm-hmm. But I've got two babies, right? I've got the business and I've got the actual human. And I'm trying to make sure that if I'm in the office, I'm present there. And if I'm at home, I'm present with my daughter. And obviously you'll know, like anyone calls you, client, talent, 11 o'clock, 1 o'clock, especially when you throw in the US, you can just work constantly. And I've had to be really strict. And this new word that I've like discovered, boundaries.
Oh, really? I love that. What's it been like 7-8 years, right?
7 years.
7 years and boundaries just became a thing.
Boundaries and balance, two things I'm like, fuck that's irrelevant. And now I'm like, no. I understand why people talk about those words. And so, yeah, I don't want to be hanging out with Mari, my daughter, and then be on the phone trying to put out a fire or trying to talk to a client and actually when I was on maternity leave, I had like super simple songs, which is for kids in the background with my daughter in her bouncer whilst on a new business call. And I got off that and I thought, I'm nuts. Like something has to give here. Otherwise it'll be me.
The key point there was you're supposed to be on maternity leave.
Yeah, I know. I didn't do very well at that.
No, it doesn't sound like it.
No.
And I actually remember your LinkedIn post was like, I've had a really great maternity leave, first day back in the office. You have told a fib.
No, I didn't. I did have an amazing maternity leave in the sense of I did so much stuff with Mari. Oh, nice. And I think it was because I went back to work way too early. Mm-hmm. And you don't know that when I keep using this analogy to my investors, and you'll be able to relate to this. I have been in a hamster wheel for my entire career. Mm-hmm. And it's just like, go. And then in February, I was like, no one talked to me from work. Obviously, please, daughter and husband talk to me. But I was like, I just need a bit of a like clean break, which is obviously what maternity is supposed to be.
Yeah.
And it was the best thing I ever did because that was the bit that gave me a bit of perspective of something has to give. I have to find balance. I have to like rework what my normal had become because I think otherwise I'd have just kept going. And for me, it wasn't, if I was doing a call, I'd be like, right, well, I'm going to take Mari to the biggest event for a 3-month-old possible. Those poor kids, like obviously happy just chilling or getting a tiny little bit of attention. But I did so much stuff with her and we were so lucky the amount of things I got to do with her, and she's as hyperactive and overexcited as me. So I get so much out of it. So it wasn't a lie, but if I was to do my time again, 1, I'd have been off for longer, and 2, I'd have wanted to piss off sooner.
I love that. I feel like it's like a real learning curve. I have seen that your baby is the most bougiest baby because didn't she just go to New York?
So she has gone, I think this is again coming back to work too early. So I came back part-time after 4 months. In hindsight, so how old is she now? She's 9 months. I think I'm only now really ready to start work. But obviously I have been working. Mm-hmm. And I then was in the US for a month in our office there. She came to Amsterdam where we've got clients. All of those things were easy because the nanny comes with, and the nanny, God love her, has had to like adapt to our crazy life too.
Your nanny sounds like the perfect person. And she has the best job. She gets to travel. Do
you know the insane thing is when I actually met my husband, like really early on, he was like, if you weren't doing what you were doing and money was no object, what would you be? And I was like, 100% a nanny. I was like, I love kids. Now I'm like, that is the most brutal job on this planet because you have to come into someone else's home. Mm. The way that people are in their houses is every house is different. Even just learning like where to put the dishes and how to put stuff away. And then you get really attached to this kid. And then Mari goes to nursery and you're like, oh, thanks, I don't need you for as many hours. And you literally just pull the rug from underneath someone. So now I'm like, I could never be a nanny. It's brutal. Also, she gets to do like the shit bits, which is like trying to get my daughter who refuses to sleep. And I'm like, I'll now take her to the class and do the fun bit. You do the hard bits. Absolute tangent there, sorry. But yeah, so because I'd gone back to work early, I didn't want to, there's no part of me that wants to leave Mari for like 2-3 days, especially a month in New York. The one thing that was too far was Cannes. In hindsight, I should have done.
Oh, that's Cannes Film, was it Film Festival?
The
one that you just been to.
Oh my God. So Cannes is nuts. You basically start at 8 a.m. and you're supposed to finish at like 4 a.m. But Mari doesn't sleep. So she still wakes up like 6-7 times a night. I was then trying to like drink all the rosé because, you know, it's in Cannes, that's what you should be doing.
Oh my God, yes.
And then trying to like entertain clients, I was screwed.
Oh.
I also went to Meta Beach and my husband met me there. Nanny's flight was cancelled. So she was like 36 hours late. So I was like, you look after her now. You take today's holiday, like bring her out. I was like, people love kids, right? I'll be fine. And because of the heat, she did a gigantic poo in her nappy, but she was sweating. So as I took her, obviously Meta, I was just dripping with poo. And I was like, this might be the lowest point of my entire career. And then I was like, you have to just get on with it. My husband's like, do you want me to take her back? I was like, nah, it's grand. Like, don't worry about it.
At this point, I smell like shit. I might as well carry on.
Exactly. And I did just a bit of Sani from a bag. Off we go. But yeah, that was really brutal and really, really hard. But she's having a great life.
Funny though. I enjoyed that.
Again, another tangent.
You know what? This is what I'm definitely showing my friends who've just had kids and they really feel like they've got the hardest life. Have you ever had shit falling down you at Cannes?
Exactly. There you go.
Not. Well, I'm going to pull it back to when you began Scene Connects.
Okay.
So you obviously started at ASOS and you were a one-man team for social media and you were there for 4 years, really built it up just to give like the short story.
I've got a bit of research here. I'm loving it.
So I did. And I've lost myself now. And then obviously you decided to start Scene Connects. At what point in your ASOS career did you think, right, I could actually start a whole influencer marketing company on my own?
Never did.
You never
I don't know how I'm here.
Okay, cool, great.
No, but
that's similar to how I did it. I literally just took a leap of faith and had no clue what I was doing. I was like, fuck it, I can do it. 24-year-old me was like ballsy.
Yeah, I was 26 and I'd been at ASOS for just shy of 5 years and ASOS is hardcore. Again, it's probably changed now, but it was all about who can work the most hours, who can work weekends. I looked after 8 markets. I was doing stuff in Australia, UK, US. I was broken. And then people weren't talking about burnout and everything that is high on the agenda at the moment.
You just called a purse, yeah.
I just got on with it.
Yeah, people literally did victimize people for complaining as well.
100%. So, and then I was like, right, something's got to give here. Interviewing at Instagram. And I then, through another agency called Scene Presents, met my now investor. I literally met him for about 80 minutes in Shoreditch House. And he was like, what would you do if you had like a clean slate for an agency? And everything I had done at ASOS, every Instagram post drove ROI. We had a huge data team and like almost too much data that we didn't know what to do with it. And when I was getting inbound from influencer agencies, like most of them / all of them don't exist anymore. But it was like, send us a unicorn t-shirt and we'll put it on an influencer and it'll be really cute. And I was like, yeah, cool. Well, how many were you going to sell? And no one would reply to that email because they obviously were just at that level. It was very much the glam side of influence marketing versus the ROI side of influencer. Said that to this guy and he was like, cool, off you go. My entire family thought I was nuts because they were like, why on earth would you leave ASOS, growing business, working across multiple markets, managing this big team? And my team there were unreal. A few of them I've stolen. And I genuinely thought, I'm going to set this up for 3 months, maybe have a little bit of equity, and I'm going to have to very quickly get someone in to run it because I'd never even worked with an agency. So I didn't know anything about agency operations, models, but I think that helped because this space was new. Then the big, large agencies didn't know how to do influencer marketing and you could just take risks and get on with it and do it well and learn on the go, which is part of the fun of it.
I love that. So I actually didn't know that you obviously didn't found it, I guess, on your own.
No.
So you had someone come in. So that was really interesting because I was actually going to say, was there one campaign that actually really broke through that everyone decided that they were going to come to you and you kind of really skyrocketed? But
so my third brief was over £1 million.
Oh my God. And we have very different beginnings.
But then I was like, oh God, I've really blagged this. And I actually called them. A very good friend of mine now and actually works somewhere else and has also just become a client where they've moved on. And I was like, just to set expectation, this is where we're at. And they were like, no, you can do it.
I love that.
And we did. For every £1 they spent, they saw a return of £17.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it kept going until I did too well on that project, because then one of my projects was build them an entire internal influencer team. So I did all of the interviewing, all of the recruitment, because obviously internally it was showing that it was working. So we kind of talked ourselves out of a job a bit there. But great, because I showed that influencers works when done properly.
Because even when you first began, I guess influencers weren't as big as they are now. No. It was actually interesting because I read the other day on, I think it was your LinkedIn, that when you first registered your company,
87th.
Yeah, you were like, there was not many agencies at all. And now there is thousands.
Everyone does it.
Everyone, it's almost like they've seen, obviously there's this big spike and everyone wants to work with influencers. But I guess SceneConnex is obviously one of the originals. You know how to work with influencers. You know how to build that ROI. I think a lot of the companies sometimes you see they don't really understand who is going to return that investment.
It's a bolt-on service. Yeah.
Yeah, and obviously there's so many influencers. Like we talk about this in-house all the time about how we're taking on influencers and what makes them different. And it is so difficult because people can buy followers, can buy a blue bloody tick now.
Yeah. What's it like, $10.99 a month or something?
I know. And I honestly, it was baffling my brain for a few days. So I was like, everyone was following blue ticks. I was like, oh, today we've made it. And I was like, right, 10K, 9K. So,
yeah.
You know, obviously in that market now, we're looking at it. Do you sit there and think, wow, we were like the forefront of what's going on?
I guess same question to you. You never do, right? When you're in it, you're just like, God, I should do this. I need to do this. I need to do this. And I think we are so bad when you're in the thick of running a business to just stop for 5 minutes and go, God, I did this. And actually my husband's pretty good at that. We're in New York and I was like stressed and I was like, oh my God, I need to do like a year's worth of work in a month, but I need to finish at 4 because the nanny works 8 till 4 and I'm trying to do this. And he was like, can you just take a beat? He was like, you're in New York because you grew a business that meant that you've got a US arm. And I was like, oh yeah, that is pretty cool. And he was like, yeah, and you were able to then bring your daughter out here, and your daughter, whatever she was then, 5 months of age, is in New York for a month. He was like, 1/5 of her life. And I'm like, right, good. This is what I need, because I just think you constantly, again, it's that hamster wheel, right? It's just like, what's next? And I never take that breath and go, oh, we were really early on in there, or oh, that campaign did really well. And I'm trying to do more of that too, but also for the team.
Yeah, and I think as well, what's interesting, although you did obviously have this investor like at the beginning, you have literally led your team to this point. You alone have done that. So I think you should take a little minute and just think,
thanks, mate.
Amazing. No, because actually what's interesting is we actually met via doing a magazine conference, and didn't we go to the same university?
Did you go to Trent?
Oh no, my mum went to Trent.
Stop it, I didn't know
your
your
mum.
mum.
My mum's an alumni at Trent actually.
Was she?
Yeah, she is.
I'll go back and lecture, I love it.
No, there was a reason that it was like maybe one of my old lecturers or something happened. And you literally messaged me. I was like, I was talking about you the other day. I was like, no way does Sedge know who I am.
That was also the start of the pandemic, wasn't it? And it was all the first Zoom online, and you just can't actually have a chat with someone.
I know, it was we were like waiting for something to happen. I remember thinking, this is so bizarre now. Like no one can meet in person.
Yeah.
But actually, how did the pandemic affect what you guys were doing? Because I thought there was, especially in influencer marketing, so many peaks, troughs, standstills. At any point, were you really worried?
I think everyone, irrespective of what happened, was worried because you didn't know. And even if it was working for a month, you didn't know what was going to happen the next month, because obviously when it started, it was very much, oh, just work from home for a week. And then it obviously became a month, and then it became like 3 years and no one's going back into the offices fully. So that constant, I guess, resilience is the word I'm going to use here, in terms of what was being thrown at you. And I never had the confidence to be like, oh, amazing, this is going well for our space from a business perspective, because also there was so much other negative, people dying, right? So you don't want to celebrate or go, God, we just got a brief, or this is pivoted. But I think from our space, we put people on furlough to start with, and that was brutal. And I didn't even know what furlough was. The way I was spelling it, I was like, oh, right, that's what that is. Okay, cool. Before I send these letters out. And I had to get HR clued up quickly there. Those phone calls, I was in tears because I was like, this this is people's lives, and I'm not in a position to not put people on furlough. We actually did pay back our furlough when the business did well in the pandemic. But yeah, the pandemic ended up being a moment in our space where we did grow as a business. And I think the reason for that is it was a real sink or swim moment for influencers, because people went in the street, so above the line, the budget there was no reason to spend it there. Then you think about dual screening, and people had less attention than they ever had before. So TVC looked different, connected TV looked different. You know, if you're on one device, you're on 3 devices because you're just bored out of your mind. And from an influence perspective, and I'll be interested in your view here too, but you really had to own your USP, and you had to create content that really entertained people at home. And so we had a few weird things where like some talent were like, we will just drop our rate by 75%. I'm panicking, just give me work.
Really?
Yeah. And now at the cost of living, we're getting the complete opposite, where we've just done an audit, and prices for the same people, same content, same usage has gone up by about 55 to 60% in the UK, but they're not then seeing the return. So there's the double-edged sword of like cost of living. We, as freelancers, which ultimately influencers are for a business, you need to support that. But equally, I can't justify paying you 60% more if the client is not going to see the return on that. So there has to be that negotiation, happy medium. But I just feel like this space right now is...
Oh, it's crazy. And I also think as well, as something like maybe an influx that I've seen on my side of, there's obviously, similar to the influencer marketing world, talent agencies popping up all the time.
Yeah.
But also by, you know, and I feel like such a hypocrite for saying it, because I didn't have tons of experience before, but obviously non-experienced talent managers who are pricing incredibly high because they know there's money in the industry, and it's almost like a greed rather than value of your client.
Yeah.
And it throws everyone else's pricing either out of whack, or if they're undercutting everybody to get their client on top, it sends everyone else into this spiral, and it's quite detrimental, I would say, to my industry.
Yeah.
Have you seen it on that side as well?
I think that, so we're part of the trade body of influencer marketing, and it is the thing that is probably most important because it is the Wild West. And we will always do an education of, no, this is the rate and this is why, but also the education piece to clients. This was really early on. This was about 2 years into the business. We had a professional athletes agent ask us for 300K for a campaign. And we had 3K. We got him for 3K because that was what was fair. And the agent was like, just saw a good brand name, just thought they'd have money, just thought I'd chance it. And I think there's still so much of that going on and happening. And even if a client came, we'd already like agreed and gone far too down the line. But if a client came to me and wanted to work with that person now, not the person, the talent manager, I think is the big difference. Like, they are not consuming the information around them and thinking about fair pay policies. They're just like, what can I blag? Yeah. And again, to your point, the greed piece. And I think for us, like my job, also doing my job right, is if there is that kind of cowboy Wild West piece, is making sure the team have the confidence to explain and upsell to our clients as to why that isn't right, or why we won't be paying that fee, even if they really want to work with that person. Because like you say, if we're supporting it, we're also throwing our hat to encouraging other people to just throw rates either way out there.
Oh yeah, for sure. I have seen some crazy rates, and I think some people's are fully justified. You know, you just know that if, say for example, someone like Molly May sells something, you know it's going to sell out.
Yeah.
But then there's other times you're like, so it's just because you've come off Love Island doesn't mean that you have a selling ability. That does not mean that you've connected with your audience. It is not a God-given that you deserve to be incredibly well off from the get-go, or
but that makes your fun job, right? Your job fun?
My fun job.
My fun job. It's a fun job.
It is a fun
makes
job.
your job fun, because actually when the talent do come off Love Island, and they're all obviously going to sign with you, because who else would they sign with?
Interesting.
But you can then do a few campaigns with them, and you can then pull their case studies together, and you can then show that they have that selling power, rather than just saying, oh, they're just off Love Island, so I think you should just pay. And I think that's the difference of the science behind a brand can always, or an agency can always justify the rate if you can show the click through and you can show the performance. And I always say, like, if your talent can get people onto the site, we've done our job.
Yeah.
The conversion bit is slightly different. Like I worked at ASOS when Michelle Obama wore a dress, and we had 3 units left because the dress was about 4 weeks old. And in fast fashion, that obviously doesn't last long. And people are like, oh, Michelle Obama doesn't sell. I was like, no. She got something insane, like 60,000 clicks to the site in a tweet where she didn't even mention the fact she was wearing ASOS, but people were then image reversing, finding that dress, realizing on ASOS. I was like, but that social got traffic to the site. The conversion piece didn't happen because it all depends on stock levels, sizing, price point, et cetera, et cetera.
I think that's actually a really an interesting point too, because we've had it before with brands and they'll be like, you know, we can show the click throughs. We have those stats, we know, but if it didn't sell, potentially it might not be that person's particular fault who's selling the product. It might be that dress probably isn't worth £150, you know? And I think people are so quick to the blame game rather than internally looking at 100%. Themselves. But it was actually interesting, obviously we spoke about Love Island. You guys run the Love Island eBay campaign.
Yes, we do.
And I remember seeing that thinking, wow. And I always thought Tasha was an incredible one for you. It made the most sense.
Yeah.
How do you now, like obviously I'm guessing you're going to do something similar this year?
We've done Tom.
Oh, you did Tom, but you're going to do the summer one as well.
Oh my God, I haven't watched Love Island and I haven't spoken to the team about this. So I'm going to say yes. I assume so.
But obviously, if you were to do Love Island eBay, how do you figure out which one of the islanders best fits for that eBay campaign? Because I think it's almost become the new PLT campaign to go for. It's exciting and you've made slow fashion really exciting.
So ITVX, obviously you can view ITV anywhere on any device and you get to consume that content for free. You don't have to pay to be an ITVX consumer. And from an audience perspective, you know that you can consume that content from anywhere for free because you know those ads are the value exchange. And I think consumer-wise, we are far more aware and amenable and acceptable of those ads because you can watch that content anywhere. Again, just come back from the US. The only thing people want to talk to me, irrespective of whether they're 60 or 16, they want to talk about Love Island.
Easy.
US are obsessed with Love Island.
What, UK Love Island specifically?
Yeah, UK specific.
The US one doesn't bang as much.
That's because I just love the UK one. Why bother?
Yeah.
We've just nailed it. And when we obviously did not do the partnership deal with ITV, that was done via eBay. And it was powerful because it is everything that Love Island is known for. It challenged and changed the status quo. And it was all around supporting pre-loved and changing the perception. And again, with the Pretty Little Things, you can buy 150 units from one Instagram post. eBay is one item per SKU because it is buyer-seller market. And Tash made immense amount of sense because if you had backdated and audited, which obviously only people as nerdy as us in our world would do, but she was already a big advocate of pre-loved. So it wasn't us saying to a Molly May, who is with Pretty Little Things and very much in the fast fashion space, it wasn't us all of a sudden going, do you mind just talking about eBay? And do you mind just wearing a few bits and pieces? And obviously we're bringing in rails to every show, and Tash was genuinely excited and the brand were getting that feedback of what she were, and she's still high-end luxury, but pre-loved, which again, when you are her audience of 24 to 26, that then makes that, you know, I'll spend and invest in that key piece, and I know that I can then resell it and I can use that cash and I can use it for another investment piece, again, buying, reselling. So she just made enormous sense. And again, with Amy Bannerman, the stylist, also known and an advocate in the space of pre-loved. So it's all about the who and drilling down into those audiences and knowing that it doesn't look like a badging exercise. So the honest answer is I didn't watch this season. I have not caught up with the team to see whether they're doing it again, but we've done Tash and we've done Tom, both of whom have been really successful. And the measurement is then around brand uplift. And do people then consider eBay as a sustainable, pre-loved space to purchase? Because again, I can't do what we would do if it was with Pretty Little Things, where we'd look at the click-through and the conversion, because as I said, it's one item.
It's crazy. I've never even thought about it like that way. But obviously with eBay, I did think they found things that had a few more SKUs for Tasha's edit, because you could buy a few.
Yeah, but all then it's the same question, right? Like how many, you can get a Prada dress and you can buy a couple of units, but you have to get the sizing right. I'm not the same size as Tash. So she wears amazing outfits. I can't buy them. But then I do find myself being like, ooh, Prada, let's see what I can find here through eBay. And they've got authenticity guarantee. So when it's luxury items, handbags, earrings, I just bought a pair of Chanel earrings because I wanted them for Cannes. And I was going to go on her. And it was something like £230 to rent a pair of Chanel earrings. And I was like, I can't justify £230 renting to then give back at the end of the week. And I found the exact same pair of earrings on eBay with authenticity guarantee for £180.
Oh my God. And also you could lose an earring. I've lost
I lose everything these days. Yeah. Don't know where my mind is.
Well, that's really, really interesting. I actually never knew any of this. So I think it's really great for other people to hear exactly that, also that there's so much logic behind everything that you guys are doing, which you would think that people thought anyway, but I'm not sure anymore. Everyone's really lost their mind this year. But moving forward to your personal life, you are recently a mother. Congratulations. I know we did slightly touch on it earlier, but I did mention to you before, obviously we started filming, that I really find this quite an interesting conversation as another female founder. And obviously I'm creeping to my 30s, and it has just been a conversation where I've been with my partner a long time of the baby. Am I going to have a baby? And at what point? And I think especially when you're a female founder, probably definitely more than a male founder would probably feel, although I'm sure they are as equally as part of their baby's lives. We obviously have the dreaded maternity leave, which when your whole life has been consumed by something, that just seems for me completely, can't imagine taking that much time off. And it sounds great that you enjoyed it, but I just couldn't. For you, having a baby, was this at the right time for you, or did you ever feel as a female founder pressure to almost put it off because of your role?
So I have always wanted kids. And so my viewpoint in life was always work my absolute bollocks off, work as hard as I possibly can, so that I would hopefully be in a position to have the luxury to spend time with my family. I didn't meet my husband till I was literally like a week before my 30th. So I did I saw you did get married like a couple of years ago. Yeah, but I did the classic turning 30. What am I doing in my life? Who am I? Am I going to die alone? And met Daniel, got married, obviously on the same wavelength from a family perspective. And I knew as soon as I got married that I wanted to have children, and that was the way I wanted to do it. And I'm not even a traditional person, but I just must have had that in my head my entire life. So as soon as we were married, I was like, hello, baby. And we were really lucky. I fell pregnant within the first 3 months. But I was going through quite an intense stage of the business when I fell pregnant. And when I look back now and I've, found this wonderful balance word, I think it is nuts how I did my pregnancy. And I am so insanely lucky that Mari is here and that she is healthy, because I basically tortured myself for the entire pregnancy. I worked harder than I have ever worked. I was constantly on breaking point. You don't sleep anyway because you're so uncomfortable and constantly in pain. I was then not sleeping because I was so stressed. I was averaging like 2-3 hours sleep.
Oh my God.
And just running off adrenaline. And it got to a point, which was about 3 weeks before she was born. And I was like, I'm going to have to go on maternity leave. I'm knackered. And so when she was actually here, and I had a horrendous birth, like absolutely catastrophic. And I, again, then was like trying to come to terms with that, but trying to come to terms with the fact that I was just working at this horrendous.
Do you think the stress of working through your pregnancy contributed towards your birth?
I have no idea. Like,
you could have just literally had it in your head and be like, it's going to be horrific. Just
my pregnancy itself was so easy. I actually think I mentally was like, oh, she'll just like pop out, fully clothed, hair in a ponytail, ready to go. Yeah, and that didn't happen.
It's a shame.
Yeah, it's a shame. But I then couldn't get into the mentality of I'm on maternity leave. And actually, I just this morning was on a tube. This is actually really random, but I used to work at Red Bull for 3 years. And I got a text from this woman and she was like, is this Sedge? And I was like, yeah. And her name was in my phone. I was like, Emma, South London Red Bull. And she was like, I think we're neighbours. So I had not seen this girl since I was 18. And she literally is now my neighbour. And she's just fallen pregnant. She has her own business too. And so she like came around, met Mari, and then she was like, so I'm pregnant. And I was like, I did everything wrong. So I was like, let me tell you, like, take some time off before the baby comes. Make sure you get yourself into the groove of like decompressing and switching off from work, because I still had emails on my phone, which I now do not do ever, even though I'm back at work. Best thing I've ever done in my life, other than my daughter and my husband. Throw that in, sorry.
You literally say things like me. I always put my foot in it and then I'm like,
backtrack. But it is, and my clients knew I was on maternity. The team knew I was on maternity. I wasn't getting a ton of emails. I didn't need my emails on my phone, but it was such an aggressive mindset shift from being on. And again, as we said earlier, like, you can call me anytime, I'll answer, I'll be there, whatever you need. And so when I, hopefully all being well, have baby number 2, I really want to make sure that I have set myself up to be able to have, and I might decide I want to come back after a month, and that's my choice.
Yeah.
And if I decide I want to be off for 9 months, 12 months, that's also my choice. And I didn't feel like I had choice the first time round. I put an immense amount of pressure because I've never not worked. I've worked since I was like 16. And I'm used to the hours, and I'm used to exactly all the stuff that you were saying. So, but society puts a lot of pressure on you when you get into your 30s, and it's like, well, you really should have a kid. And, you know, I had a lot of
body clock, or then you're going Sex and the City, either one or the other.
Yeah, but I had a lot of, do you think you'll be able to fall pregnant with the stress of your job? And people say these things. I was in a lift when I was pregnant, and I find this batshit to this day. And a builder was like, you must breastfeed. And I was like, sorry? And I actually hadn't realized that. And I didn't post on social until I was about 7 months pregnant. By that point, I couldn't avoid it. I was like waddling everywhere. And even then I wasn't like pregnant. I was just like, yay.
I'm a penguin today.
Literally. And so I had the badge on, and I was taking it off when I was getting into the office. The team knew. And I was like, oh, okay. And we work with Tommy Tippy, so I know and have met and had a lot of conversations with women about their journey and breastfeeding, whether you can, whether you can't. So I felt really equipped within that space. And all of a sudden I was like, who is this random guy that I do not know? And then we used to work on the 7th floor of the T building, and those lifts are so slow. And I spent the entire time with him going through, my kid will only be intelligent if I breastfeed. And I got out and I was like, okay, thanks so much for the information. And it was only when I got to my desk, I was like, is that guy? And why do people think it's okay to give women their opinion? And it's the same thing, whether you're pregnant, whether you're thinking about having a baby, whether you're thinking about taking time off or not. Everyone has an opinion. Everyone has a viewpoint. And I'm very much like, thanks very much for the information, but it's my family. It's my child. It's my body. I'm going to listen to my gut and do what I think is right for me.
Yeah, I think also that's really important, especially when, I don't know if you've ever been asked this, but I've actually been asked this more than once, which is shocking to hear. Am I planning to have a baby? And if so, what's the time frame? Because they need to know how much time I'm planning to take off. Because it's a really big factor in choosing if you're going to work with me or not. And I never really thought of that. And I also thought, I've not really ever thought about having a baby yet. You know, it's really, I'm not there, and not that it's anybody's business.
Yeah.
And then I really felt like I had to defend myself as why I didn't want to have a kid. And then I was like on the back, like defense. And I was like, but actually if I decided to, it's really, I shouldn't have to okay that with you. You know, if I get pregnant, I shouldn't have to go, just to let you know, I know I did say this, but I've actually backtracked and I've decided I'm going to have a baby this year. I think people assume that they can just ask what they want. Or like because you're working alongside them, and it's, you know, it's their career and your career, they have a choice over your body. And that's brand wise, talent wise, everything wise, in builders and lifts. When I got engaged, I was really weirdly open with the team. I was like, Anna, I want to try for a baby, and I hope I can have a baby, because I felt like I needed to let everyone know that was my goal and that was my plan, because I didn't want anyone to think that I'd caught them off guard. And then I felt so guilty when obviously you don't tell anyone until you're 12 weeks. And I was like, and I was in the US. I was in the US for 3 months, did a month back and a month then. And so no one needed to know, because you can literally see this on Zoom. And I was like, daily to my husband, I was like, I just feel like I am lying, that I am like having conversations with people about things to do with the business, and I won't be here at that point. And as soon as I got to 12 weeks, I took a scan in the US, which cost me $1,000 to make sure everything was okay. And then I was like, right, just so you all know. And again, I always remember this woman at ASOS who was the editorial director. She was tiny, could hide it. She didn't tell anyone until she was like 6-7 months pregnant. She was like, and I met her when I was pregnant in the US, and I was like, why was that? Because obviously when I was 21, 22, whatever I was way older than that, ASOS, but I was not thinking about having a kid, or my narrative around having a kid. And she was like, because if I was due a promotion, or if I was due a pay rise, as soon as you tell someone you're pregnant, you're just put on the shelf. And she was like, so I find this really frustrating. I feel like I've changed my hours, and I am so present for my daughter, and she's really getting my energy, which is really fun for me, probably not for my husband. But I really feel like I'm constantly like, I finish at 4 p.m. I hope that's okay with everyone. But I haven't lost my drive. I haven't lost my ambition. And I feel like I'm constantly to be like to people,
No. I'm still the same person. I still have to work. I still want to work, but something had to give.
Yeah. But you know what? This is how I know you are a phenomenal mum, because when we were talking about going for drinks, you gave me, I think, 4 options. You were like, these 2, we're going to have baby with us. These 2, no baby, extra wine. And I was like, I love her. I was like, I'm happy with your baby to be there either way. I don't mind. I'll drink the same.
And I was like, extra wine.
Extra wine. But it is interesting because I read something the other day, and I think maybe because I have approached the 29 mark, and it is
I love like, everyone, I will be 30 soon, so I want really big presents.
And have a big party.
I had the best 30.
It is I'm going through that weird crisis of like, do I want kids? Do I not want kids? And I've never really had to think about it before, but the body clock is real. And I read this article, and I remember I felt really shocked that, something like subconsciously, like a male employer will subconsciously not hire someone in their late 20s because they assume that woman would like to have kids. And I found that the most shocking thing I'd ever heard. And I thought, like, I don't want to quote that exactly because I can't remember exactly how it was written, but I remember thinking, you know what, that must be something that employers who are male maybe do think about, or it is
probably female too.
Yeah, female too. I have all like women staff, and it's not even something that would even bother me anyway, because well, I one day want to have babies too. So
but it's tricky. So how many people are in your team right now that work?
11.
And so I'm going to guess the average person is 25 years of age.
Yeah, I think they're actually, no, maybe they're a bit younger, but 24, 25.
But so give it 4 years time.
Oh my God, they're all going to have babies at the same time.
And then from a business perspective.
Yeah.
So I have done a lot since I've come back. Like I've talked very openly about the fact my return to work was not pretty. And I realized as a business, we weren't set up for returning to work parents, dads included. And there are things that I want to do, and there are things that I have done, and there are things that I've changed. But so we've been trading for 7 years. There is probably 5 people who are a similar age to you who are all having the same conversations, most of which are really open with me and are saying, just so you know, in the next year or 2, I want to start thinking about family and kids. And our new sexy maternity policy is there. But actually from a business perspective, we still would have to obviously pay the maternity, which is really good for those 3 people that might end up pregnant at the exact same time, but you still have to backfill those roles. And that could be the thing that could kill a business of our size, because the staff cost ratio aggressively shifts and changes.
Yeah.
And again, we're lucky because I've got the investment, and there's different ways in which you can kind of make those things work. But again, when I was at ASOS, there was a real point where anyone who was a senior manager, it was like 50% of people were on maternity leave. And I remember then thinking, God, they're then having to recruit. Yeah. They're having to backfill. You then have really amazing people that have started for a 9-month maternity gig who the business then doesn't want to lose. So they're then trying to find more roles for people. And it's when the agency is predominantly female, our industry is predominantly female, and those things happen all at the same time, that really is a financial whole situation to kind of deal with as well.
How everything has to be correct. And at the same time, you are, as a business owner, it is a financial strain.
Yeah.
But we actually did look at our maternity policy the other day. Ella is my MD, and we were really proud of where we got it to. We thought we're probably one of the only female agencies who've really put a lot of time into it, who has a founder who's under 30. Because I think most, like you said, you went on maternity leave, and then you kind of put in a sexier maternity policy because you knew what you wanted. So I think it's just something for everyone to think about, but it is tough.
It's really tough.
There is no winning solution, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Do bits each side. But I just want to round it off by saying, thank you so much for coming on. You are so inspiring to so many women. I talk about you in my office quite a lot, and my staff all think you're incredible. So thank you so much for coming on. And I really think this is my favorite podcast. Don't tell anyone.
Do you say that at the end of every podcast?
No. It's true, I don't.
I love that. No, thanks for having me. I appreciate it, obviously.
Thank you so much for watching this episode of Managed. If you loved watching, please make sure you're following us so you can receive updates on our next episode. I'll see you next week.